There we go. Yes.
Yeah, all right. All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Benton-Franklin Health District. Today's February 21st. The time is 1:31-ish.
And then I do have one comment real quick, sir. So I know that at the last minute, yesterday morning, we have a Benton County public meeting at 3:30. So we may have to try to hustle from here to there about 10 minutes before the 3:30.
Well, I'm a little faster than you, so we can be done.
All right, just want to make sure.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, it's actually the 28th of.
Oh, sorry, 28. My
Oh,
bad.
we don't update the agenda. I'm so
Oh,
sorry,
yeah,
guys.
thank you.
You just have to-
I was making sure you're paying attention.
Thank you.
I knew it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, can we get approval of January 17th, 2024 regular board meeting minutes?
There's Lucy.
So moved. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Move on to public comments. Is there anybody here? Like, comments in person? No. All right, if there's anybody online, if you could please raise your hand.
Please pop open the participants list. So if you'd like to make a public comment, go ahead and raise your hand in the Zoom app or press *9 on your phone.
Scroll back down one time.
Please scroll down on the participant list.
If they raise their hand, they automatically go to the top.
Oh, it does go to, oh, gotcha, okay. All right, so I'm not seeing anybody, so, okay, we'll close public comment. Senior staff comments. Any?
No.
Okay. Unfinished business.
Good afternoon. I would like to update the board on the district administrator recruiting efforts from the committee. As you know, we've been meeting periodically to complete tasks to help assist with the recruiting efforts of the district administrator. As of right now, I have published extra postings for this position externally, and we have ended up with approximately 53 external candidates, which is fantastic. And we'll have more information with you guys for you guys later on in the executive session. So I'd be happy to answer any questions at that time. Right now, we would like to review the employee survey, the staff survey information that we had submitted to our staff in January and February. And I'm going to ask Amanda Mason, our Communications and Public Affairs Manager, to come in and report out on that. Thank you.
Okay, I have the overview.
So you guys.
Okay, hi everyone. Since I know you only have till about 3 o'clock, I will try to go through this swiftly, but yet efficiently. So, if you, perfect. And I know all staff are probably listening in, so I want to do my absolute best since this is their voice. And so again, just as clarification, this is a presentation that's been approved by the DA Recruitment Committee. And I am excited to continue to share our voices of all staff. Next slide. Okay. First, I'd like to talk about the method overview. I think it's important to understand how I collected this data and what went through to it. I collaborated with performance management, HR, IT, and as well as developing with them an unbiased survey of 12 questions. Now, I collected the responses for a month from January 12th through February 13th. I had 3 all-staff emails, promoted it in multiple meetings, and then went ahead and collected all of the data on February 21st, as I know our meeting was being moved and thought that might be the best to get as many responses as possible. I received and compiled 52 total responses. For all transparency, there was one more response after February 21st, but this was already approved by the DA Recruitment Committee, and I felt like deadline is a deadline. So leveraged AI, ChatGPT, to create an impartial and comprehensive overview. This gave us that really opportunity to take all the data, and I took myself out of it. I did not complete the data or any of the survey. I wanted to basically remain impartial. And so to maintain anonymity, all of the raw data it will be available to you all and the recruitment committee. So it looks like this. It's basically all the responses. So you're welcome to read through any of that, but I just want to make sure that that was available, but it won't be available to all staff just because of the anonymity. Okay, so question number 1, we looked at what steps do you believe the DA should take to build trust and rapport with all staff? Now, looking at the data here, the top two answers were transparency and communication. That is emphasizing the importance of clear and open communication, sharing information promptly through official channels, and being transparent about decisions and changes within the organization. That rated 25%. Then listening and empathy was 20%. That's actively listening to staff concerns, being receptive to feedback, leading with empathy, and fostering a culture of respect and collaboration. Then understanding and learning and accountability and impartiality had 15%. So those are along the lines of taking the time to really understand the roles within the agency and be able to talk about it. Also understanding the responsibilities and challenges of each department. And accountability and impartiality, again, holding oneself accountable, avoiding favoritism, and making decisions based on qualifications rather than personal relationships, and being impartial in leadership. And then as you can see, the following ones were engagement with staff, and then competency and leadership and community engagement were both 8%, or excuse me, one was 8%, and then community engagement 5%. So you can see where a lot of our values lie with all staff. Next slide. Oops, I apologize. Question number 2, how important is it for you to have the freedom to make your own decisions within your scope of work? And how do you believe the new DA will approach empowering staff in this regard? One of the biggest reasons we had this question was because we wanted to avoid burnout. And I know that all of our staff have a lot of responsibilities. So employees emphasize the importance of autonomy within their roles and expect the new DA to trust their expertise. They seek empowerment, collaboration, and recognition from leadership while valuing open communication and professional development. And again, you have that slide in front of you to be able to understand more effectively the percentages there. Question number 3, in your opinion, what key challenges or obstacles do you foresee the transition with the new DA, and how do you propose we address them? Well, employees first saw several challenges in transition with the new DA, including building trust, overcoming resistance to change, addressing cultural differences, and ensuring effective communication. So what a lot of this means is staff really emphasize the importance of that new DA to understand the organization's history, the public health principles, the needs of the community, and additionally, concerns about leadership turnover and that transparency that we've seen, and also staff involvement in transition processes that are highlighted. Overall, employees stress the significance of open dialogue, again, that collaboration and that shared vision for navigating the transition successfully. It's great if we're all on the same page, and I know that does have a lot to do with internal communications. No pressure. Question number 4, how would you like your new leader to lead others? Well, employees desire a leader who embodies servant leadership. Basically, we're serving, the new leader will serve our staff as well as the community, prioritizing staff growth and leading by example. They seek, again, transparent communication, respect, integrity, and collaboration. Some of those fall within our mission, vision, and values. Adaptability, vision, and empowering leadership are also valued traits. And number 5, when you look at what we don't want our managers and supervisors to be led, we as in all staff, employees don't want micromanagement, of course. They don't want to be led through fear or dictatorial styles. They seek autonomy, support, clear communication. Micromanagement and lack of trust and secrecy are also very undesirable, as we've seen some of that in our past. And instead, they prefer, again, collaborative, coaching leadership styles, and basically empowering all of our staff to feel valued. And any questions on that so far? As I know I'm going through it quite quickly. Question number 6, can you share any experiences or perspectives that might help us better understand our current situation or challenges we're facing in leadership? These were our top 6 highlighted ones. What I did in AI is I put all of the data and said, give us our themes and consistency that's across all of the responses. Common issue, micromanagement, probably burnout, what a lot of us have felt before. Past dishonesty and favoritism. So really there's been that trust and communication gap. And so I see us working on that as I sent an all staff email today to share, hey, this is what's coming up. Siloed departments hindering our teamwork. And also things that we're aiming towards is really that change management, especially dealing with longstanding issues and the whole point of fostering growth. Seemed like reading some of the responses, really all staff liked the idea of being able to grow and have those opportunities to learn within and beyond their scope of work. And then concerns of qualifications and training adequacy. I know we're going to be sharing more with all staff on the DA recruitment process. And leadership style, openness, supportiveness, and inclusivity. So it's really about all of us being teamwork, despite our level of where we are in the hierarchy of the organization and feeling that transparency. And then questions 7 through 11 were more based on basically percentages. What quality do you value more in a leader? We found humility, innovation, relationships, necessary conflict, and change leadership were very highly valued. There really isn't a big contrast there. They're definitely all above 50%. So it looks, you can make your own interpretation of what that means to you, but the fact that humility, more overconfidence, innovation is something that all staff really value. Relationships here at BFHD, we're a family and we consider ourselves that. And I think that all falls into that transparency and openness. Necessary conflict, things aren't easy, but not maintaining the status quo. And when I mentioned change leadership is what we're saying. When prefaced in the question, change leadership involves actively planning for the future with a clear vision. Change management focuses on dealing with practical challenges and responding to changes as they occur. So again, the core of public health is being proactive, and that's also looking at that from internally as well in administrative roles. So the next steps, there was question number 12 that I left out. There was a lot of really good information. Basically, it was prefaced to say that what are some questions that maybe we could give all of you, the Board of Health, that you would be interested or considering to ask new applicants. So my goal is to take AI, generate a list of not just going word for word on the quoted questions that all staff have sent, but also take all of the responses and try to find some results within that of some top questions. So you get both. Also maintaining that transparent communication with all staff throughout the process. Again, AI was definitely an opportunity to make sure that we were impartial, and that was my biggest goal. So if you have additional questions or need clarification, I'm more than happy to answer them. Again, all raw data is available to you and the DA recruitment committee. Any particular questions or concerns?
I just want to go ahead and say you did an outstanding job on this, and I think all the concerns and all the input from staff is very important. You think those are pretty common sense things, and that you'd have to find managers that have those attributes, but it's harder to do than find that these days. So I appreciate all the input from staff, and we'll do our best to do what we can on that and try to narrow it down so that you have a quality person as a DEA in here. So I appreciate the work though, because I know you put a lot into it.
Well, we appreciate you listening and most importantly, being engaged and being excited about this. Yes.
I do have a question. So could you define again what necessary conflict is?
Yes, I can. You know what, I might have a different paperwork for that, but when you're looking at, let me find it here. Okay, so again, necessary conflict, it was between necessary conflict and maintaining the status quo. So when you're looking at that, you're going, okay, do we just keep going the same path and the same way that we're doing it, maintain that status quo that we've already seen traditionally? Or do we have to have that professional necessary conflict? So one employee might have a conflict with somebody else, but because we're bringing it up, we have to face that conflict. So they're looking for a leader who is okay with addressing appropriate conflict, who's not conflict averse. Thank you. Thank you very much. Or maybe a better way of explaining that, but so yeah, people definitely like to be heard and addressing it. And we've found that really helps eliminate the triangulation and the things that we've seen in the past that really hinder on fear and are opposite of trust. I hope that answers your question. Any other questions?
Good.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Can we still are to the county?
I'm just kidding.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's a big tease.
All right, moving on to new business. Dr. Kidd.
Thank you. Good to see you all today. Pull up my own. Oh. Put this forward, right? I think it's the bottom left. There it is. Perfect. Good. So I just want to start with a few updates and then I'll go over the respiratory stuff, much like I did last meeting too. But one of the things that I want to mention to you all is that I think that the CDC is likely to change some of the COVID isolation stuff in the spring. So at this point in time, nothing has changed. We're still doing what we're doing, just sort of a heads up that in the spring, it's likely to go to 24 hours symptom-free and off medications. To sort of bring it in line with RSV, flu, other sorts of things for how long people would need to stay home or stay isolated or stay out of the place. One thing that we're carefully watching here was a measles case in Spokane. So there were a few in Clark County. This probably would have been maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago now. But there was a single case in Spokane now, probably about 13 or 14 days ago. And what sort of worried me was some of the potential places where this person was exposed, potentially could have exposed people in our community too. But it's been 2 weeks now, knock on wood, everything is looking okay. We're staying kind of on top of that. So we have notification out to providers, sort of coming from the perspective of a physician. I think, a lot of people haven't really seen measles. So I just want to make sure people got to keep that on the top of their differential. If they see something with a rash and a fever. I wanted to bring to your attention too, we had a really great radiation response drill in February. We're going to do another one in March. This was a great coming together of both counties, the emergency response departments, BFHD was there, sheriff's office, highway patrol, all sorts of people, the Department of Health, the Air Force. So this is a drill that happens every 8 years for what would happen if there was a radiation release at hand. So this is kind of a big deal. If FEMA is involved. And so that's great. We're going to finish that up next month. You probably saw too of the single case of the plague in Oregon. This kind of got a lot of news play a couple weeks ago. Even my dad called me and said, "What's going on with the plague in Oregon?" But I want to remind you all that the plague. Oops, how do I go back one? That the plague does come up sporadically. This is a map for the past 50 years or so of cases of the plague. Usually in the West, there's a few you kind of see there from the East. I think they're probably from travelers. But this is a totally treatable condition now. This isn't like the Black Death of 1450. So it gets a lot of news play because it's exotic. But you're kind of watching that too. So moving on to the respiratory stuff. So this one here is for RSV inpatients. It's interesting. Inpatients has dropped, apparently to 0 on this chart. But you see here, there's still a few people coming to the emergency department that are having cases of RSV, just not being hospitalized. This was an interesting one here for influenza, I thought, because as you can see, I can't get my pointer to work, but over on this side, we kind of had this peak. It went down a little bit. And now it's kind of going back up again. So we'll watch that next week and see what happens with that. But the next slide looks very similar to this. You see the same thing, both in hospitalized and ED folks. This one here is for COVID, kind of, about where we have seen it before. Although this is the ED again, kind of going up there a little bit, which makes sense with some sort of anecdotal reports of people with COVID. So what questions do you have for me or anything you think that you would like to talk about that I didn't mention? Any questions? And again, I'm happy to modify this to make sure I meet your needs. So if there's something else that you want to see differently, I'm happy to present that data. So just let me know.
Appreciate it. Thank you. And rule revision update.
Okay. I'm Jody Payton. I am the supervisor for the land use, sewage, and the water section. And today's topic is going to be the revision to WAC 2462728. So to start out with, these changes are already approved and they are going to be made. What we're going to be talking about today is the highlights and the changes that will most affect our local rules and regulations. So rules and regs number 2 is the sewage one. And these changes will have an effect. Sometimes it's minimal and sometimes it'll be a little bit greater. There is a website available with the Department of Health that will take you through all of the changes with the state level. So to start off with the changes that are going to be happening, there's a lot of definition changes. Some of them are pretty simple. Some of them are just changing on-site sewage system being written out to OSS being abbreviated. So that should shave off a couple pages from the regs right there. They've added some definitions because they've maybe added some new sections. So they added a new section for pump chambers. So they had to define a pump chamber. They expanded some definitions, for example, minor repairs. Now it clarifies that some permits are not required for certain repairs. There's a big section that we adopt by reference, and this has to do with technology. It's the sewage technologies, the proprietary treatment devices, whether they're a treatment product or a distribution product. It's the rules that they have to go through to be approved, to be used in our states. And we just adopt them across the board. But they do have an effect because, you know, the last time these rules were really revised was 2008, and technology has truly changed since then, between now and then. The picture in the top corner, that is an Oscar system, which is replacing the mound system, which was a 4-foot tall hill in the middle of your yard, 80 feet long. Now it's only 2 feet and not as long. So those are better able to serve our clients. There are some revisions that we have to make to our local management plan, but they are giving us a year to do it. So they set out the minimum plan requirements. They let us know the new ones that are required. One of them is that we have to submit our progress annually to the Department of Health, and that they have to be revised and updated every 5 years. This one's kind of a big one, expanding the property transfer inspections of septic systems. So starting in 2027, all septic systems that are involved in a property transfer, whether it's a deed or sold, they have to have an inspection. And that's going to affect us because we have to verify the results of that inspection. We may require additional inspections. They may have to fix their system if we find that it's in repair or failure. And it does give us some authority to waive the inspections if they have been maintaining their inspections. So, but we have to put something in place to keep track of the
So I
inspections.
think I have a question. So I know typically when a house is sold and there's a septic in there, the buyers and sellers, the buyer is going to require typically the seller to go ahead and get it pumped and do an inspection on that too. And so you'll do another inspection on top of that inspection. So it's kind of, I'm just curious.
That's going to be the tough part. So right now it is a lender requirement.
Yes.
That the septic system be pumped and inspected, and the lender wants that. This makes it a state mandate that no, you don't get to waive that anymore. So, one of the things that we're going to be charged with is having to come up with a system to certify inspectors. Right now, it just depends on who the lender will accept. If they will accept a pumper's inspection, great. But are we going to accept the pumper's inspections? And we also have to come up with a standard form that everyone has to fill out so that everybody is reporting on the same things.
That's going to be important because it could slow down contracts between buyers and sellers. And so it's going to, you have a lot of work. It's going to be interesting.
Yes, it is. And then I'll be back before you asking for more staff. So-
I knew there was a catch.
So I got a question. Is there a similar model in other states?
I'm not sure about other states, but there are similar models in different counties throughout the state. And we are looking at those to see how they're doing things so that maybe we can not have to recreate the whole wheel, but we do want to come up with our own certification system and determine who is eligible to do this inspection.
And when you do that, are you gonna pump that out to the community and all the
Yes.
real estate companies and?
Yes.
So they're aware of it?
Yes, we'll get to that too. Okay, so there's some permit requirement changes. Like I mentioned before, a minor repair does not require a permit anymore. And so it sets that out. There are some site plan requirements that are set and changed. There was a Department of Natural Resources rule that said our site plans need to have these elements on them. So that's something that we have to change. A lot of these we don't have to change a lot because we already have them in effect. One of the things they are changing is they want the horizontal setbacks included on the site plan. With regards to repairs of failed systems, they are really trying to make it more feasible for people to get their systems repaired. And we also have an emphasis on getting the system repaired versus kicking them out of their house or condemning the house. We don't do that. We try to find ways. There is a new fund. The Clean Water Act allowed for some loans to be offered for repairs of septic systems. So people may be eligible for that, and that's not been there before. But the new rule sets out some new ways to deal with the failing systems. They allow the least expensive repair or replacement that still meets our rules. They redefined the 200-foot distance from your property to septic sewer connection, from the edge of the property to the actual place where it comes out of your house. That's where the 200 feet measurement starts. So some people, if they have a 200-foot wide lot and sewer is right there, they would be required to connect because they're within 200 feet. But if the connection's in the back and you have to go all the way around, you're measuring the length of the line to that connection.
That's at the point of sale typically. If someone's gonna sell the property, if they were within. that
If
200 feet.
that's when they find it, a lot of times people are finding them before they sell.
Yeah, because it's an LID, that's an expensive thing.
It is, yeah. And so as long as they can conform to our rules, we would allow a septic system to go in, even if they were within 200 feet of sewage. So this could help with fewer buildings needing to connect based on that distance. We are not allowed to impose more stringent repair requirements for and between private and public entities. And it allows for us to develop a policy relating to remediation procedures. So they're letting them do more remediation than automatically fixing them, but it's another one we'll be talking about. It talks about connecting multiple systems, multiple dwellings to a single system. So accessory dwelling units are huge. They are going in all over the place and everybody wants to connect them to the system that they already have. So they're allowing that to be done based on number of bedrooms. So if you have a 3-bedroom house and you want to build an accessory structure that's basically adding a bedroom, you have to have the capacity for that 4th bedroom, which maybe they already have it, maybe they don't. Usually they don't. So this table gets revised and updated with the minimum horizontal separations. A lot of the changes that they made, we already had in place here in Benton-Franklin, but they allowed for newer technology. Now they call out a geothermal loop, which was never done before. Some design requirements. They talk about who can design it, the homeowner, a designer, an engineer. They talk about the minimum tank size that's required. We were already calling out a 1,000-gallon tank and that's what they're changing to. So we're good for that. This is just an example of 2 different site plans that we might get. One is from an engineer, the bottom one, and the other one is from a homeowner. And that's a good one for the homeowner.
I've seen a lot.
Yeah. Some design requirements that are now going into the permits. One of the things that this rule is changing is it's allowing the homeowner to do a lot and requiring the homeowner to maintain their system, and that's doing inspections. And so they're trying to make design requirements to accommodate that. And one of them is that the lids on the septic tank should be up to surface grade. In this case, this is an example of some risers. So when you need to pump your tank, you don't have to wonder how deep it is and that if you're digging in the right spot, especially we had a failure on one and the tank was 7 feet deep. So that's a bummer if you're digging in the wrong spot, trying to find that tank. So, but when the risers and there's a lid at surface grade, people are more likely to pump, they're more likely to go in and check their system. So there was a Senate bill 5503, which requires us to coordinate and obtain permission from the owner before we do an inspection. We already do this, and we do have a clause in our application that says that I am the owner and I give you permission to come onto my property, but we still always let them know we're coming. We don't just show up. So it increases the owner's responsibility for operation, maintenance, and monitoring. And we try to help them in all of those ways that we can to do that. And like I mentioned before, it has to be on an approved form. Somebody has to be professional. Some counties do allow for the homeowner to do their own inspection, but they also want the homeowner to go through a class so they know what to look for. But they still have to answer it refer to our form when they turn in it. So this is one of the bigger ones. They are changing the minimum lot sizes and the minimum land area. So the minimum lot size, it's increasing by just a little bit, 500 to 1,000 square feet based on soil type. There's a couple different pictures of soil types. So new lots have to have a certain minimum usable land area, places where a drain field can be placed. Ours is huge at Benton-Franklin. So this is one of the differences. This is the state's proposed table. And at the very bottom, I put our minimal usable land areas. So if you have, for example, a soil type 2, the state calls for 2,000 square feet of usable land area, places where an actual septic system can go, and we call for 12,500. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, especially when it's a bare lot and there's nothing there, versus you have a lot that has a lot of improvements on it. It's easier to come up with 2,000 square feet than that. And so there might be some ways we can, try to adapt that. There's a recommended phasing implementation of these rules. So we have up until 2027 to get our property inspections worked out. We have a year to get our local management plan done. So those are all included in that. Some of the effects that this is going to have on us, they emphasize that local health jurisdictions are allowed to be stricter than the state's rules. So anything that's in the state rule, we can be stricter. So some examples of this is like we have a 48-inch vertical separation from the bottom of the trench to the beginning of groundwater or something that's no longer going to act to filter the water. That's been in place for a really long time, but now we've got a lot more information that tells us the first 2 to 3 feet do a great job of cleaning the effluent that's coming from the trenches. So the state goes to 36, and that's like one change that we could be making. We could maintain our stricter policies. We call for 12 inches of cover over the top of the trench. The state calls for 6. And there's changes we can make too, like that minimal land use area. Perhaps we can allow the smaller land use areas if they designate that on their shore plat or on their plat when they're developing. So there are things that we'll be working on in the future to make those changes. We also have a local timeline for change. So starting today, we can check one off the list for the initial presentation to the Board of Health. And we will now then be getting setting up a work group, which we've already done, seeking input from the general industry and the community, setting up work groups, developing our stakeholders work groups, preparing a local draft rule, looking at all of these elements and our timelines for that, so that when it comes to February 25th, we are ready with our rules to go into effect at the same time as the states and to be the same. Okay. So we'll be talking again. So if you have any questions, wait till then. Just kidding.
Say what's on your mind.
There's a lot to wrap your head around right now, and this is just the beginning of it. We haven't, looked at our rules to see what we want to change. There's things we want to change. But anyway,
So question,
Okay.
the groups you put together,
yes,
are any of the board members here on it?
they can be, if
Oh,
they
so
would
you
like.
haven't put it together?
We have not,
We have an internal group.
Internal
of
group.
Just staff that are working, and then towards March to April, we'll put together like a stakeholder group.
Okay.
So an installer, an engineer, somebody from the real estate industry, so we could certainly.
Good, we'll get the
Mhm.
word out there, because I know people want to be
Yeah,
on it.
so that's our next step, is getting
Mhm.
word out, asking who
Mhm.
wants to be involved, and
there's a survey that's gonna go out to any of you.
There's a lot of counties that don't even require a permit for this.
No, there's not.
And out in farmlands, we don't understand why we have to, because we work on gravity. Gravity's the best septic system you can have. My son's put in a house and he's being told he's got to put a pump in. And he's got a perfect gravity location.
I don't know the conditions for all of that.
That's what I'm saying. We
But-
got some people who want to be in this.
Yes,
And
that's
I-
fine.
Yeah, and I think to reach out to the, the Tri-State Association of Realtors, Home Builders Association, and community groups, I think you're gonna get a lot of feedback.
yeah, the survey will go out to them, and I think it's important also to look at, Jody's first slide that she emphasized was many of these changes we don't have control over.
Yeah.
They're already made at the
Yep.
state level. So what we really will be bringing to you is the new state rule, how it stacks up against our rule, which is ultimately the rule that the board signs off on. We can be more strict than the state, but we can't be less
Yep.
strict than the state. And so a lot of those are somewhat out of our control. That was a 5-year rulemaking process at the state that already happened. Now we're just gonna be cracking open our local rule. See, do we want to come into alignment with the state? Be more strict, but again, we can't wait.
Or be more flexible.
Right.
One way or the other. Yeah, makes sense. No, I appreciate it.
I will add that, we do a lot of work with landowners, septic tanks. It's a concern for us in this area in terms of our nitrates in our groundwater and our contamination. And once you contaminate that groundwater, cleaning it is a whole different issue. And that's where, our water and our resources come from. And so, there are reasons for some of these things that are put in place that are worth remembering, but you also don't want to tie landowners from being able to get what they need. So, it's important reasons that we have some of these things in place.
Yep.
Jody, was there a reason that BFHD required such a large usable land area, the 12,500 square feet?
There is, it's historic and it's before my time, and my time started in 97, so I have no clue.
I've heard that the rationale really goes back to what Marcy just
Yeah,
said.
with the
just
nitrates.
Because we're in an area that has really high nitrates. We have really permeable soils around here. That minimum land area was set a little bit larger. Now, that being said, we may be able to come a little bit more into alignment because there's technology now in place that wasn't in place in the 90s that can treat those nitrates before the effluent goes into the ground. But originally, my predecessor at least told me that was the rationale behind our minimum land size being a little bit larger, is because we're in an area of the state that has high nitrates.
Granted, they are high nitrates, but when we drill wells, my parents' well is 230 feet deep.
Yep.
I don't think that water's getting down there that deep.
Not to the well, but
I drilled one on my son's farm and it's 160 feet deep.
And my own
Through
personal
rock.
well is 60, so we have nitrates.
So we test a lot of private wells that are up around 45 to 50, just right even out behind Badger. Right there.
Right.
State limits 10. So, we are in an area of hot zone for,
We got high nitrates, but it's down deep.
well, yeah.
I can tell you from a dialysis industry, that's one of the biggest issues for us. Because during dialysis, in charge of looking at the nitrate content and other content. And I can tell you it varies between, say, Pasco and Richland and Kennewick, but universally nitrates are high. And we run into that in people who do their home dialysis because they rely on the water well. And actually, that's one of the things we monitor. Definitely, it's high in every single test we've done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Child.
Make it snappy, Kyle.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Alrighty, so today I have just a request for one additional FTE nutrition aid for the WIC program. A little background on this, the DOH recommends a ratio of one WIC certifier for every 500 participants. Right now, we currently have 8 nutrition aid certifier positions for a caseload of 4,750 participants, so that's 593 per WIC certifier. So this would help us bring us more in line with DOH guidelines. Funding is coming from DOH through the consolidated contract and has increased due to our high caseload. And with all positions, if this funding is reduced, we will reevaluate and take the best course of action for the health district and our clients.
So it's more of a budget neutral type thing, then, okay.
And we've already got.
Say that, budget neutral, that's all you had me.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Motion to approve one FTE nutrition aids.
I'll second.
Motion second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you all.
Thank you.
The magic words to a finance guy is budget neutral, right?
Just a quick announcement. I will be brief, Janae. We are really excited to let you all know that on February 13th, BFHD officially submitted all requirements, measurement documentation for our Public Health Accreditation Board reaccreditation process. So many of you may know, we went through our accreditation process in 2015. We delayed our reaccreditation with permission during the pandemic. And then during that transition time, we also upgraded from the old standards to the new standards. So new standards for public health reaccreditation were issued for 2022. So this whole agency put in a significant amount of work to make sure that we achieved that level. What it means at this point is that we are just submitted. We've been assigned an accreditation coordinator who will work with us to kind of make sure the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed on our initial documentation. Then it will be handed off to the accreditation board to review and make sure that we are actually in compliance with and meeting the intents of those metrics. And we'll be notified after that where we land. And an additional virtual, it's called a site visit still, even though it's virtual. So a virtual site visit will occur to review documentation with us. And either way, we'll get a corrective action plan, reaccredited or not. We'll get some sort of corrective action plan to help us continue to work towards quality improvement. The kind of big question that we get from staff who get exhausted from the process and also our partners is, why do we do this? And so the purpose is, it is a voluntary process for public health, unlike hospitals where we know JCO is not a voluntary process, right? But accreditation measures our performance against a set of nationally recognized standards. It's practice focused, it's based in evidence, and it really fosters that quality improvement to help us deliver essential and quality public health services to our community. So people know we are doing the things that we're supposed to do. So when we look at survey data, departments that have been through accreditation feel that, it has increased. 78% report that their accountability to external stakeholders has increased. 63% that they report that they've improved utilization of resources, which it's really important as a public entity. Really improving. 88% report that they have improved transparency. 90% improve workforce development feedback. And then, of course, as we mentioned, I've already mentioned a couple of times, our quality improvement efforts, making sure we continue to improve and find efficiencies in our processes. So we will look forward to keeping you all updated as we move forward through the process.
Thank you.
Thank you. We get approval of vouchers.
I've got the folder here too for you guys to take a look at.
Move, let's see, what does it say here? I don't have any glasses, but move that the Board of Health approves payment of voucher numbers 05-24 through 16 -2024 in the amount of $1,210,622.42. No glasses.
I second that. I have a motion second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. I think there's no opposed. Any opposed? All right, we'll move on to executive session for review of qualification of applicant for public employments.
Yes, so due to the time constraints, we're gonna shorten our executive sessions here. If the board's okay with that, just jump to B.
Okay.
Do you want, how long time do you want, Brandy? 5 minutes? Yes, 5 minutes. To include Brandy, board. Anybody else? Just you? Okay. You can come sit here. Oh. that's right. Hey, how are you? I'm good. How are you? Good.
All right, we're out of executive session. Time is 2:25. We're gonna be moving back into executive session. Review of performance of public employee per RCW 42-30-110 for 25 and 15 minutes. Okay,
Yes.
15 minutes. Time is now 2:26.
To include the board.
Yep.
Chris Martins, Amanda Mason, Brandy McNeil, and myself.
All right. All right, I forgot.
Don't put a change.
You're welcome.
I call the meeting back to order. We're gonna recess back into executive order for another
15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Good job.
This will be RCW.
Same group.
All right, we're out of executive session. Time is 2:55. No decisions were made. Or discussion was given, no decisions were made. Other than that, is there anything else? Okay, next meeting, March 20th, 2024. Be there or be square. Please adjourn.
Thank you.